friends, I'm so happy to see you today. Welcome to Annie's Pink Chair, where we bring real, raw, relevant issues to the table from a woman's perspective with wit and wisdom. Today's guest, OMG. You have no idea how excited I am right now because I am a person that loves to talk about problems in our communities and in our societies. And one of our major problems right now we have is addiction. And especially since this pandemic took hold of all of us as a country, as a world, the past year and a half. So my guest today is Tim Ryan, and he is a recovering heroin addict. From A&E's Dope Man and national thought leader on opioid epidemic, addiction, mental health, suicide. A tireless advocate for long-term recovery, Tim Ryan is no stranger to addiction. Despite a successful business career, Tim found himself in the grips of heroin and ultimately was sentenced to 7 years in prison for drug-related convictions. Tim got clean and sober behind bars. Well, listen, I want Tim to share the rest of the story because it's just too good to just tell you all in the bio. So, Tim, welcome to Pink Chair.
Hello, Annie. Thanks.
I'm so happy to have you here.
Glad to be here. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
You know, my wife and I work in the trenches of this pandemic with the addiction and mental health crisis. And if we're not doing speaking events or interviews, we're doing interventions and guiding and directing families on a daily basis. It's intense right now because we're in a pandemic within a pandemic right now.
No, you're absolutely right. Can you share with us how the heck did you become the dope to hope man? Like, this is a really catchy saying. And it's like, when I heard it the first time, I was like, hold up. How can you have hope from dope? Because listen, I'm an ex-addict myself. So That's why I really honor and admire you and your wife, because you guys are like just changing everyone's life by being there for them and being public figures that are advocates for people that are addicted, that are almost dying, that want to get sober. So tell me what happened.
You know, I never planned on doing what I do today. It was all God. And I struggled with addiction my entire life. You can read my book, Tim Ryan, From Dope to Hope, available on Amazon. But ultimately, you know, I picked up heroin when I was 14 months clean and sober. I was attending a 12-step based program, but I never got a sponsor and worked the steps. I'm the guy that thought I could get sober through osmosis. And I met a guy, Joel, took him to Chicago to move out of his apartment. As I'm moving him out, his roommate Sava pops out and says, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I'm moving out, Joel. What are you doing?" He said, "I'm doing heroin. You want to do some?" Sure. One bag. Oh. That one bag turned into a 12-year habit.
Okay, hold up. Yeah. I want to ask about that because I've always been afraid of needles. I'm not a needle person. So needles didn't intimidate you at all. And hearing about any heroin addiction never intimidated you at all of becoming too addicted?
So this was back in probably 2000, 2001. I snorted it. I didn't shoot it up the first time. I snorted it and I'm like, God, I like the way this makes me feel. But a year and a half later, it progressed to injecting. And my worst fear now at almost 9 years sober is going to the doctor for a physical because I have to take blood. And all my veins in my arms and hands are completely collapsed in my feet. And I despise needles. And I never thought that's where my life would go. But at the peak, you know, I was doing 5 grams of heroin a day. I was probably shooting up 20 times a day.
Yeah. How much money is that?
Oh, $500 a day. I spent a couple million probably on heroin alone and throwing lawyers and consequences and multiple DUIs and driving on revokes and two times in prison.
Afford that? How do you afford $500 a day? I mean, it's a wonder to me how you didn't turn into a male prostitute or some sort of drug dealer or scammer or manipulator, right?
So I scammed and manipulated my family. I always worked, and I worked very hard, but I owned an executive search firm. So basically, if I place someone making $100,000 base salary, I got a $25,000 fee. And the average salaries I was doing was probably $200,000 to $500,000. So I could place one or two people and have 50 or 80 grand in the bank. And I always was able to function. I hate the word, I was a functioning addict. No, I was the lowest of the low. I slept under Lower Wacker Drive with the homeless people a couple nights a week because I was more comfortable there than being in my 5-bedroom house with my former wife and 4 kids at the time. Because I used to live and I lived to use. I functioned, but my whole world revolved around drinking and doing heroin until it didn't.
So I want to know the root of that, because I'm sure every time you go to group or you get your therapy or whatever, people want to know, the doctors want to know, the therapists want to know, well, where is this coming from? There's some roots here. Did something happen tragic when you were little? Did you have trauma? Did you have triggers? Like, what happened to you?
It all is based around trauma. I think and my wife says this, I'll steal it from Jennifer. Everybody in some way, shape, or form is a trauma survivor. And I didn't realize that until I was 2.5 years sober at a conference in Chicago, and I saw someone by the name of Dr. Gabor Mate speak, who's worked with indigent and homeless.
I love him.
Yeah.
He's so great.
Realm of the Hungry Ghost. I mean, look up Gabor Mate and watch his video on addiction. And he says basically it's either emotional, mental, spiritual, physical, or sexual loss. And me being adopted, I didn't realize that people that are adopted are 48,000 times more susceptible to become an alcoholic or drug addict due to the abandonment issues. I'm actually working with my therapist on that right now. And I'll share. Last week I had a therapy session and I told my therapist, I said, Jennifer, my wife, thinks it has to do with me being adopted. And I said, I always knew I was. I had great parents. We lived on a lake. We had a very stable family. He said, Tim, but you were in the womb for 9 months and you were safe. And 3 days later, you were taken away from your mother. You were abandoned, however you want to look at it. And I'm like, wow. So I had that, and I had an older brother that was a narcissist and beat me up, and the learning disabilities and molested by the babysitter and the whole kit and caboodle. And alcohol and drugs became my outlet. I was going up to Wisconsin drinking at 14 years old because the drinking age was still 18, and cocaine at 15.
That. Yep.
Yeah, I lived to use and used to live. And my first time in treatment was 1990. I stayed sober a year and I bounced in and out of recovery and church. And what I didn't realize was I was always trying to live Tim's will and not God's will. And once I got out of my way, and that took me getting my 3rd DUI, I overdosed on heroin. I hit 2 cars, almost killed 4 people. And
oh my gosh.
I fought the case for 21 months. And in the midst of fighting the case, now everybody, my family, my kids know I'm a heroin addict. And I'm about 3 months into fighting the case, and I'm out of heroin. So I'm profusely sick. I'm taking a hot bath, and my 17-year-old son, Nick, comes in the bathroom and said, "What's wrong, Pops?" And I said, "What do you think, you idiot? I'm dope sick." And he said, "Not anymore, Dad. Today's your lucky day." And my son threw 2 bags of heroin on the counter. Yeah.
Oh.
So I got out of the tub and I did them, and I went in his room and I said, "Nick, what are you doing?" And he said, "Well, don't worry, Dad, I'm selling a little bit." I said, "Nick, you need to shut this down immediately." I said, "This isn't a little weed. This is heroin, and you know what this has done to me." And my son looked right at me and said, "Well, Dad, you're a successful drug addict." And I said, "Why would you say that?" And he said, "Well, we got a nice house. He got an office in the Wrigley building. You make a good living." See, in Nick's delusional mind, because I functioned, he thought I was successful. 3 months later, I caught him doing heroin. We started using heroin together. And people don't understand that's how my son and I bonded, doing drug runs, getting high. We lived to use and used to live. And then October 30th, I was sentenced to 7 years in prison in the Illinois Department of Corrections. And when I went in, I snuck 50 bags of heroin into the jail with me. If I would have got caught, I didn't realize after the fact that's 15 to 45 years first offense. I just didn't want to be. I just didn't want to be dope sick. And at Cook County Jail, you could see a doctor and get some meds. And 3 days later, I was transferred to Sheridan Prison. Northern Illinois Receiving Center first, where I spent a month, and I didn't sleep a wink. I defecated and vomited myself for about 2 weeks straight. And I looked up and I said, God, higher power, if you're out there, please take away this obsession. Please take away this obsession and compulsion to use. And I swear I will turn my will and life over to you. And please let me get into Sheridan Prison. The next day I was transferred to Sheridan Prison. And since that day, I've never had a thought of drinking or using a drug in my life. And I got into a therapeutic community. I did 13 and a half months. My wife divorced me, lost our home in foreclosure, displaced my wife and 4 kids. And when I got out, it was the first time in my life I was clean and sober. As soon as my parole agent showed up, I was at another 12-step based meeting, started doing church, getting into more spiritual aspects of life, trying to understand my internal versus my external, and started some family support groups, set up a nonprofit, stumbled into working in the treatment space. And then on my 21-month sobriety date, my 20-year-old son, Nicholas, succumbed to an accidental drug overdose.
Hi friends, it's Annie Lobert from Annie's Pink Chair, and I am actually on location at our nonprofit ministry called the Destiny House. And do you feel and see the presence that's going on here? The peace, the calmness, the comfort, the beautiful grass, the trees. This is what each woman comes to when she enters our Destiny House program for sex trafficking victims. Would you please consider partnering with us monthly, or just send us a one-time donation? Just go to our website at hookersforjesus.net and click on donate. And listen, your donation goes to a good cause, and it's tax deductible. Thank you so much.
You know, I'll ask people. My ex-wife called me. Yeah, we shot to the hospital. She was a nurse. She said, Nick's unresponsive. I'm really worried. And I don't talk about this. I took my cell phone and I plugged it into her car charger, and a song came up instantly off my playlist, and it was by the band 6 a.m., which is Nikki Sixx, former heroin addict. And it's all addiction songs. The song that came up was Courtesy Call. And it's about them finding somebody dead in a hotel room. So I unplugged the phone. We shot to the hospital in silence and ran into the emergency room. Tim and Shannon Ryan here to see our son, Nick. He overdosed, and 30 seconds later, the chaplain walked out. I knew he was dead. What was my next thought? What was my next thought? And people say, oh, you wanted to go get high. No, my next thought was I'll be at a meeting that night. I called my sponsor, and since then, I've been to 150 funerals. I've probably assisted thousands of people on the road to recovery and speak all over the country, and had another daughter. I have a beautiful 6-year-old today. So God called one home, blessed me with little Mackenzie. And then my life shifted drastically 3 years ago when I'm at the top of my game. I'm speaking nationwide. I'm on every news show. I'm working in treatment. I'm running my nonprofit. But I had a void. I was in a horrific relationship that I stayed in because I had a child. I was either ready to relapse or blow my head off. And I wanted to partner with the female, and this lady, Jennifer Jimenez, had been following me, and I was following her, and I ultimately messaged her, and we started talking, and she's coming up on 16 years sober, former supermodel, actress, but she's speaking all over the country. And we finally got talking, and about 6 weeks in, she says, hey, Tim, why don't you put your money where your mouth is? I don't want any broken promises. You either want to get together and talk shop or not. So I bought a plane ticket, flew to Florida, met her, gave her a hug. It was like we were instantly connected. God put Jen and I together for a reason. 4 hours later, I said, I am going to marry you and spend the rest of my life with you. And she goes, maybe you should finish your divorce, go sow your oats. And I said, my divorce will be final in a month. And 6 months later, I was engaged to Jen, and we got married on New Year's Eve in the Justice of the Peace in Beverly Hills on December 31st of 2019. And my life is just amazing. But yeah, we're in the trenches here and just trying to help people.
Wow, that's such an incredible story. I'm so happy for you, by the way. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's really beautiful when you can meet someone that totally understands your heart and even can see things that we don't see. I mean, I'm married too right now, and my husband sees things in me that I don't see, good and bad. And I don't like it when he points out the things that I don't understand or that are, bad about my personality where I'm struggling. And I really like how you hit on the abandonment issue and how your wife saw that, because that is real. And honestly, the abandonment thing is something that happens to a lot of addicts, because I don't know if you felt this or not, but when I was growing up in my childhood, my dad was just never there for me, and he was really harsh, and we never really had a relationship until way later. But that felt like abandonment, even though he lived in our home. And for me to drink, or not necessarily just drink, but opiates, cocaine, painkillers was my go-to. And when I did those things, Tim, I felt home and I felt peace, right? Yeah. And so I don't know if you felt when you were getting high that that's what you were trying to attain, is just to feel normal.
Exactly.
Feel at peace.
People think, oh, you were trying. No, I was just trying to survive. But unfortunately, my tolerance built and I needed a lot more drugs. But the darn thing is, a lot of people enabled me, my ex-wife, my parents. And it's like, why didn't you intervene and say something? But everything has been taught to me has been learning lessons, from my addiction to prison to getting out to my son passing away to another bad failed marriage to the best life I have now. God is constantly teaching me, and I can take what I want and benefit, or I can go back to old ways, and I just choose not to live that way anymore.
And I also noticed when you were in jail and you decided not to ever get high again, that was like a surrender to God,
absolutely,
right? I mean,
it was. And, God works in weird ways. I when I got to prison, you do 30 days in a seg building, then you go to this orientation hall, and I was able to get into one of the little buildings, which were nicer for prison. And I walk into my cell, and there's this big black guy, 400 pounds, all muscle, sitting on the bunk, and he's reading an AA big book. And I kind of walked in, and I said, hey, what's up? And he looks up at me like I bothered him, and he says, hey, Whitey, you into recovery? Yeah. I said, yeah, why? He said, because if not, brother, you ain't coming in this cell, because that's all we do in here. I said, I'm into recovery. He said, hey, I'm Big Perk. And I said, I'm Tim. He said, Tim, I think I'm going to call you Powder. I said, you can call me whatever you want. Big Perk was a Chicago gang chief for 25 years. He led one of the most ruthless street gangs in Chicago. He had been to prison 10 times, and that man is my savior. He's my best friend in the world, and that man helped save my life, because 18 hours a day in that cell, we didn't watch TV. We weren't there to do push-ups for noodles and get swole. We were there to change. So we studied the Bible, went through all the big book stuff. I read probably 300-400 books on spirituality, on Napoleon Hill, Tony Robbins, you name it. I read it, and I wrote 2 business plans for 2 nonprofits, and I got out and started one of those. And the stories and the things that have happened, I mean, sometimes it's good to just sit back, because your initial question was, how did you do this? I didn't. A power greater than me guided and directed me to do this, and this is my will now. Yeah, I mean,
I love it.
I was trained from being adopted, through addiction, through having a son. All this was my training ground for what I do today moving forward.
And I tell you what, you have authority in that area, you and your wife, even as a team, because wherever you guys walk and speak, people will listen, and they will take those words into their heart, and they will really make a change, because they can see that you both have done that with your lives. And I wanted to talk about, you guys were working with Dr. Drew, and I was on Dr. Drew one time, and I met him. What a nice guy.
Drew he's the best.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
So I met Dr. Drew 5-6 years ago on the Steve Harvey show in Chicago. We were doing an intervention, and the kid left. So I ran outside, got him, brought him into Dr. Drew's green room, and we did an intervention. And the next day I flew the kid to treatment. And I looked at Dr. Drew. I said, I need your cell phone number. He said, I'm sorry, Tim, I don't give it out. I said, I will never abuse it. I will never share it. I will only call you when I need your guidance and direction. And he gave it to me. And
That's
then when
awesome.
I got to send you this. I wrote a book called From Dope to Hope, and Dr. Drew wrote the whole back of it. And we became friends. Well, it turns out when I met Jennifer, the first person when we decided to have a relationship, we took a picture and I sent it to Dr. Drew and I said, this is who I'm going to marry. And he says, I approve. Because when my wife went to treatment, he was actually her doctor. And he declared her dead 3 times. And she hung herself and had to learn how to walk and talk in a wheelchair to a walker. But a year later, Jen did the deal and started bringing her celebrity sober friends into the treatment center to speak and do meetings. And 2 years later, Dr. Drew called her and said, hey, Jen, I'm doing this TV show called Sober House on VH1, a spinoff from Celebrity Rehab, and I want you to run the house. And she said, why me? And he said, it's people like you that keep proving me wrong and keep me doing what I do on a daily basis. And she says, ain't that about a bitch? But, you know, next thing she's doing Sober House and then Celebrity Rehab and 4 seasons of Beverly Hills Housewives is Brandy Granville's her best friend. So she was on that and speaking nationwide. And I wanted to partner with the female because, you know, Annie, if I came in to speak in an event and you were in active addiction or in your past life, you want to come up to me and you start spewing all your trauma. I can help guide and direct you, but I need a female with me to do that. Women shouldn't be spewing all their trauma on me. So I want to partner with Jen, and now we're this kind of power couple, and
Right.
it works well together because she's a hardcore trauma survivor and from the supermodeling and all the stuff behind the scenes that have happened to her, and we share about it, as you do. We carry a message of hope, and, you know, my tagline, from dope to hope or dope to hope, you know, I was hopeless in a prison cell, but when I closed my eyes and asked God for that little bit of help, a little bit of light came in, and then it grew and grew and grew. So my motto is take them from dope to hope.
Oh, I love your tattoos. Those are so cool. You know, I like what you said about Jennifer, because it is really good to have a female there, especially when a female is laying all her problems on you, because sometimes with trauma, when you're so vulnerable, when someone gives you attention and it's an opposite sex,
Yeah.
I mean, there you go.
Yeah.
I'm in love with you. No, you're not actually. You think you are because I listen to you. Okay.
Annie, I'm so glad you bring that up, because my wife, I had 3 cell phones, and she'd be like, Tim, put on Do Not Disturb, but why is this mother messaging you at midnight about her kid?
No.
Yeah, who's drinking, but she taught me boundaries. Hey, look.
Yeah, you need them.
And you got to have them. And unfortunately, in this industry, there's still predators, which
Right.
I'm sure, you know, but we just keep pushing forward and helping one person at a time. And that's all we can do.
I'm so proud of you both. Now, one last question is I wanted to, because we're running out of time, to ask you about what is going on with the opioid crisis and having communities hand people needles and letting them shoot up in a safe space and maybe even possibly helping them find the dope, just so we can help and put shelter over the homeless people and people that are being trafficked. What do you think of that type of model? Does that harm or does that help them?
It's in my eyes, it's not the right way to go. It's called harm reduction, and it started 20 years ago with clean needles and cookers, and we have the AIDS and HIV epidemic under control, and Hep C. What people don't understand, it's fentanyl today. Fentanyl's 50 to 100 times stronger than pure heroin. 3 grains of salt, if that was fentanyl, will kill you. And we're going to give someone a delivery mechanism to inject that safely. But hold on, this male or female has been out there turning 10, 15 tricks a day just to be able to try to find a bed, to keep their drug habit going. But we want to make sure they have clean needles. How about giving people the opportunity to get off the streets, to get into a rehab facility, to get them medically detoxed at 90 days to 6 months minimum, then integrate them into Christianity, 12 steps, smart recovery, refuge recovery, and get them connected with a job. People need connection and purpose. And what we're doing, we've had more deaths than ever, 93,000 last year. I'd multiply that by 3. It's not getting any better. But what we're doing is not working. And the whole medicated assisted treatment, Suboxone or methadone, all they do is prescribe meds now. There's no therapy. There's no treatment aspect to it.
That's Band-Aiding everything.
Yes, ma'am. Yep, we're putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. It is.
You know, if someone needs help, where can they go, Tim? Can they go to your website? And what are your social media handles? They
can go to www.dope, DOPETOHOPE.com, dopetohope.com. I am on Facebook or Instagram at Tim Ryan, Dope to Hope, or on Twitter at A Man in Recovery. And they can call us at 844-611-HOPE, 844-611-4673. That number does not ring to a call center. It rings to my personal cell phone. I answer every call.
Thank you so much. And
Thank
can
you,
say
Annie.
Your website one more time?
Dopetohope.com.
Okay, dopetohope, Tim, I want you to come back, and I actually want to meet your beautiful bride, too.
You absolutely will.
She is an inspiration.
You and Jen could talk for hours. Thank you.
I thank you for your time and your sacrifice to our communities and the help that you're giving so many thousands of people. And we love you at Pink Chair.
Thank you, Annie. We love you too. God bless.
You're welcome. You too.
Thank you. Bye.
Hi, friends. I want to talk about our nonprofit today. It's called Destiny House. And it's a place where ladies that have been in the sex industry, ladies that have been sex trafficked, can come and live and recover from their lifestyle. Basically, it's this: to dream, discover, develop into the perfect destiny that God has for them. It's 9 to 24 months, and we're so excited because we're actually going to be opening up our second home called Dream House. And this place is a place where ladies can come after the first program, and it's more independent living where they'll have their jobs and their schooling that they're doing, and they can become more successful, because we know that trauma and complex trauma is real. That's why I want to ask you today to please consider to partner with us, because most, if not all, of these ladies come to our program and they're completely broken. They've got heavy complex trauma, which comes with so many different issues and comorbidities that they need help just to get stabilized and to get their mind and their heart right and to get healing from that deep trauma. Please partner with us. If it's on your heart, we need to keep our houses open. You can go to hookersforjesus.net, click on donate, or pinkchair.com and click on donate. And your donation is tax deductible. Thank you, everyone.